Welcome everyone back to another installment of the Quorum Future Work Docs. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Saskia. Verraes.
Verraes. Yeah.
Verraes, Verraes, who is, at least as far as my network, the person that I know that has been trying to combat and educate climate change and the importance of things like sustainability, but also just to be, correct me if I'm wrong, Saskia, making a better Earth, whether it's work or life. So, Saskia, it's so nice to have you here today. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Thank you so much, Trek. It's lovely to be here, and I'm definitely looking forward to another great conversation with you, because I know that we can have some deep discussions about all the things that are going on this earth, and that is definitely what I dedicate my life to, including my career. And it goes beyond climate change. Climate change is only one of the fractions of the system that we need to address. Unfortunately, really, as part of it, it's probably one of the symptoms of the system that we need to change. And I like to refer to myself as a systems changer, systems thinker. And as part of introduction, what I like to tell people is where that actually comes from. How did I end up being talking about the things that I do? And I have to go back to my childhood, which I grew up in the Netherlands, and I was in my family actually always referred to as my nickname Little Mare. And this was referring to my granddad, who unfortunately died just before I was born. People always saw me as stepping in his footsteps. And the thing that he's mostly known for is that he was the highest council official in the occupation during World War II of the Netherlands and my hometown. And he was asked to step up as the highest council official because the mayor had been kidnapped and the second one in charge had to be going in hiding. So they asked my granddad to step up and lead the town officially, formally, as and cooperating with the Germans at the time. And at the same time, he was also the head of the resistance. So he took on, he did both. And that to me is foundational to everything that I've been doing in my career, as in fighting the system from within is possible. He did it, and I still do not understand to this day how the kids especially dealt with that, because my mom and her siblings were sort of young teenagers, knowing that this was going on in their house. There was, he would receive the occupiers whilst they knew that there was things being hidden in the house at the same time, and they all knew how to deal with that as part of the system that they were supporting and wanting to reestablish the freedom and the community that they strongly obviously believed in. And that's totally the approach that I've taken in my corporate career. So I really believe that we can, being inside the corporate system, which we do not necessarily totally agree with, but you have to be inside to be able to actually get the respect and people to listen to you to make the changes that you can make. And so I followed my my career in tourism to do that. I ended up always being the hippie within the company, even in the Netherlands. When I say people, that I'm from the Netherlands, they go, "Oh yeah, I understand why you support climate," sort of thing. Everybody in the Netherlands does, but even in the Netherlands, I was the hippie. So that's how far I was pushing the boundaries. And I ended up here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, as a chief sustainability officer, although I would call it chief responsible management officer at the time. Then I believed I had reached so much change, and I wanted to share that with more people. So I jumped into an educational opportunity that I got as the setting up a postgraduate course, Leading Change for Good, and a micro-credential, Leading Beyond Sustainability, to spread my knowledge to a lot more people bottom up. And then I realized I also needed to continue to do that top down, which is what I do through my consulting work here in Aotearoa with Proxima Consulting. And I also wanted to continue doing this globally, which is what I do through my not-for-profit, which is incorporated in California called Match for Action. And most of the work that we do is through crowd doing, which is very much related to the future of work discussions too, because crowd doing especially, we are trying to create an opportunity for people to see what it could be like to work in a role that is co-designed and that really is based on ikigai, based on what they want to learn, what you already know, and how you can use those skills and learning to contribute to the thriving future that we're all fighting for. Short introduction.
And yet you had time enough to join us today for this 45-minute call, which is extremely impressive after all that. Let's see. So where to start? Also, I cannot believe that resistance Lumiere tidbit did not come up in our conversation earlier this week. That is absolutely remarkable. That's a lot to live up to. So let's start with over 25 years of experience doing exactly what you just said, all of these, and now Chief Sustainability Officer. Let's talk about first, what do you dislike about the title Chief Sustainability Officer? Let's go into that.
Yeah, great question. Sustainability is a word that just means too many things to too many people and is often abused. Yeah, it is obviously used in many ways, often greenwashing. People have no idea what it actually means. And to me, that makes it difficult. So that's why I'd rather use a different term like well-being or thriving or responsible or respectful or that sort of thing, because the way that I interpret sustainability is I really like the definition that John Ehrenfeld gave to it a while ago in his Sustainability by Design work, which is the possibility that humans and other forms of life on Earth can flourish forever. So this is all about the holistic approach to how do we make the system indeed like back to being what we actually are supposed to be, being nature, being an ecosystem that is in complete balance, where everything has its place, where everything can flourish, where everybody can, as a human can flourish, but also all the animals and nature that we all need to actually be able to live up to be our best selves, no matter what that then actually means and what creature that is, in what country it is, in what town it is, in what business it is. It doesn't matter. We all need each other. We are a collective, and we are all, if you look into, I always find that so fascinating. If you look into DNA, how much we are indeed related, and we need to embrace that as part of it. And sustainability, if you use that word, doesn't express that most of the time for people. So that's why I don't like it.
Totally fair. And so you were talking earlier about encouraging people to basically find, the work that they want to work on. So I guess a two-part question. One, what does the world look like when everyone is actually working on what they want to work on, learning what they want to learn, doing what they want to do? And then second part, how do we achieve that, and what are some of the successful things that you, in your experience, have done to actually promote and accelerate that process?
Yeah, it's fantastic to think about those questions and what would the world look like if we are indeed like nature. Like, I just see the world, if you think about a place that you've been where nature was in complete balance, like an old ancient forest, an old ancient rainforest, where you see all the plants completely thriving and there's an enormous diversity, and the rain and the sunshine and the earth and the soil and everything is there for a reason, has a balance. That's what, to me, that's what we should be as humans too. Like, how cool would it be if we didn't have all those like the mental health epidemic that we're currently dealing with? That is not part of how we are supposed to live. Like, if we all had a thriving life, we all had our purpose, we all knew that we could contribute the things that we love contributing, and we could learn from others, we could share, we are part of a collective, we don't feel alone, that sort of community life. If you think back, when I talk about these things, I'm talking about the Western society, right? Because if you think to look into indigenous cultures, often they have a very different operation where they are indeed far more like a collective. Some of the things that I've learned here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, about the traditional way that even now the kids grow up in a Maori environment, for instance, where they let the kid explore the potentials that they have, and then they encourage that. When they see that a kid loves speaking up and standing up and singing, well, that's what they allow them to become, and they encourage them to learn that, instead of going like in the Western society, oh no, you can't be an artist because that doesn't make money. You have to go and do law school because that's where you're going to make money. And then you end up with these people that are, don't like what they're doing. They don't like life. That's not how we can be our best selves. It's not best for the world. That's what creates the issues as well. That's when you get angry people and that sort of thing, because they're not being what they want to be. And to me, that's what the world should look like.
Totally.
Now,
So it sounds like paraphrasing here, but is this compulsion, this drive to acquire wealth, just the singular kind of danger and challenge keeping us from being able to, sort of, for lack of a better word, live in harmony with our ecosystem?
I think it has a lot to do with it. Yes, obviously our Western system has been focused on one particular success measure only, which is making money, which is not just making money, but making a profit, making more money than you actually need to do, I don't know, to do something with that you actually don't need. Right. So obviously, because of that, we know that our system is designed for that and to drive people in that direction. That's why we need to redesign the system as such. It's not just about each of us individually. It's all the interconnected pieces that drive us to almost have to live like that. Because unfortunately, if you do not have money right now, it is really hard to live a flourishing life, because you have to pay for things. You have to pay for your house. Most of the Western countries currently have a cost of living crisis. People cannot afford the things they actually need, even on a basic level. So obviously, we are driven to make money. The thing that always gives me hope is that has been consciously designed into our system. So if we can consciously design it in, we can also consciously design it out, to me. And that's what we need to do. And that's what I try and convince our boards and executive members of, that actually, what we currently have is not the best that you can do. You can do much better. And it is not just about money. It is more about indeed having, how good would it be if your people weren't sick? If you didn't have to pay for that, for instance, or if you could indeed say that in 10 years' time, you still have a business and it's not being overrun by floods or undergone by wildfires or that sort of thing, and to show people that there are different ways of doing things.
100%. I'm going to get to, we have a question from Hank we'll get to in just a moment, but I want to follow up on this thread first, because we talk a lot about learning and education in terms of, building awareness for this. But what about unlearning? What do we have
Absolutely.
to unlearn to get to this?
Well, it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say unlearning. I think you just build on what you already know. Like it's just that you don't know enough. So you need to, one of the things I always find with, well, not always is probably not the right word, often find with executives and boards or the people in charge, is that they honestly are not aware enough. They do not understand enough. They've forgotten that they actually need to continue to learn in the current, that after doing their MBA back in 1976, that they still should be actually keeping themselves up to date with what's going on. And often that scares them, right? Because they've grown up with that sort of notion of a leader is the person that knows everything, and you can't show vulnerability, you can't show that you don't understand, you can't show that you don't know. And that's often what sort of blocks them out of the conversations about sustainability and all the different topics that lead up to that, about indigenous cultures, vulnerability, about bringing more women on board and that sort of thing, because they go, oh my God, I actually don't know how to deal with that. So I'm just going to say no because I don't agree with it. But it's more that you need to actually bring them along and sort of going, it's okay. What you know is okay, but the world has evolved and you need to learn more. And bringing that into a language that they understand. It's like, me having grown up in the Netherlands, having moved through the different world, you speak different languages as such, but there is also such a thing as different languages within the business community, right? You speak marketing, or you speak finance, or you speak CEO language, or that sort of thing. And you need to understand how to speak those languages to get those people along, and don't scare them off by saying you have to unlearn everything that you know. It's just an yes and sort of approach more than anything.
Yeah, I can see how that would be difficult, as no CEO or Western leader has ever made a mistake ever. So it's convince them otherwise, right? So let's get to Hank's question, because this is coming off of the a better world in which people are actually winning. So from Hank, Hank is referencing a common critique, which is, if everyone got to do whatever they wanted, nobody would do the hard or dirty or annoying jobs. So what is your response to that kind of critique, which I imagine, and I'm afraid to say, is probably all too common?
Well, my immediate reaction is, what is hard, dirty, and annoying jobs? As in, if you look at it through the different lens of people, like all these, firstly, really, what is it? And secondly, if we all live in harmony, there are things that need to be done as part of how we live, and we will do that collectively. We will work out collectively, and if everybody is actually appreciated for the place that they have in an equal way, then all the jobs will get done. Like, if you can only think about, when you went to camp with your mates, where you would just, away in the, I don't know if you've done that, but I used to go camping a lot with my parents, and everything would just get done because it's just part of how you live. And you do it together, and you have a chat whilst you're doing it, and you're appreciated that it gets done and all that sort of thing. So I think it is hard, dirty, annoying jobs are a phrase probably that is part of the system, part of the Western system currently. And also, we do have technology. If there are indeed repetitive jobs that need to be done these days, we are also lucky that we have in some way developed into the technology world that we currently live in, where we can actually design certain things if that that would be able to be taken away from people, so you don't have to do that real repetitive entry of data or that sort of thing. That could be repetitive, even though there are people that really love doing it. So why don't we let them do it and really say to them, this is fantastic, this is really good work, we need it. And instead of indeed going, you're doing an annoying job, right? That must be, you must be such a boring person, sort of thing. That's what I
I don't
think
know.
of it.
Some of the most interesting people I've spoken to in the city are the bus drivers. So I don't think
Absolutely.
today, but yeah, I think also the appreciation. One of the things I do love about where I live in San Francisco is that they do pay their city workers relatively handsomely compared to, in terms of waste, public transportation. So, and I understand the reason for that, because it's not necessarily a very glamorous job. And also, you probably want that person to be happy if they have such an important task ahead of them. Hay says, agree that appreciation is the key, and gratitude is such a powerful force. It is, and it's an often underutilized one, at least in the Western society. So I say, like, with Next, again, a lot of, I feel like a lot of your work revolves around conversations, honest conversations with CEOs, with boardrooms about these topics that we're discussing today. What do you think is, we talked a little about strategy. It's not, and you mentioned, it's not just about convincing them or showing the education. It's about giving them agency over these beliefs. So can you talk a little bit more about why that's so critical, why that's so important?
Yeah, that's a very cool question. Agency is definitely, or trying to give people agency, and enabling people to see that they have agency, to make the decisions for themselves, as opposed to on others, or thinking that you have to follow rules without questioning things. And I think that is again something that we've very much lost in our society, and it is so incredibly important for people to understand and start believing again that they actually do have agency. And we see that definitely within crowd doing, which is one of the things we're trying to teach, really, as part of that, to let people see that they have agency, that they don't, most people, like I would say the majority, over 75% of people, come to crowd doing and say, what is the role that you want me to do? To just put me somewhere and tell me what to do. And we're going, no, we don't. We will not do that. We want to know what you care about, what you want to do, what you want to learn. And then we will co-design. And often people are incredibly uncomfortable with that situation. And you see the same thing in the corporate world because of that, because people do not believe that they actually have the power to create their own destiny, as as an individual, as a collective, as a business, that you actually have the power to challenge things, that you can push boundaries, that you're not, even if there is a law, that doesn't mean that you can't say, I don't know, how can we either go around it sometimes, like my granddad did, with being the head of the resistance. Like he was celebrated for formal and informal work, or legal and illegal work, really, in the end. So I'm not saying that we want people to go and steal things and be criminals, sort of thing. But there are, if you don't agree with a certain process or a certain job description or a certain task that you have been given, or a value that is not being lived out, take agency and talk about it and try and influence people to do things differently. There is no point in just pointing fingers to the government, for instance, because that's never going to happen, right? If we just all said, oh, we just wait until the government fixes it, that's just not, that is not going to happen. But we can make it happen if we do it all together, and if we indeed see collectively, if we all sort of take this on board, we can make the changes in the systems that we actually do need to change. And that's why agency and teaching what agency is about is so important.
Fantastic. So we're going to pivot just a little bit. Why did you join Quorum One? You've been under with us for a little bit, and tell us more about that process and what led you here to our community.
Yeah, great. I love being part of Quorum One because I love being amongst people that are indeed the challenges in this world and are thinking about what would a good system actually look like, and can we create it, and let's just try it, and and do this collectively, and give everybody an equal voice, no matter what sort of status you have, or what role you have, or what your skill set is, or that sort of thing. It gives you the opportunity to take agency and just try things out. And because we know that the current system isn't right, that's one thing we do know, but we don't necessarily know what the good system actually looks like. So we're going to have to explore, we're going to have to take on this uncertainty and sort of jump in it and try things out. And as long as we do this together with the right open mindset, and the support of each other and encouragement, and indeed like the attitudes that we have along amongst the Quorum One members, I love it that I can be part of that and get inspired by everybody that is a part of it too. I think it's an absolute privilege that I was able to join, being here in little old New Zealand, joining this fantastic community of change makers and challengers in their own right, and creating the future of work in a way that very much aligns with what crowd doing does. But with crowd doing, we're doing it in a voluntary way, where with Quorum One, we're trying to find a way that also includes that financial element, which is obviously, like I said, is still important as part of the work we do. So that's why I met Hank in 2023, and he was telling me about this, and I was like, yes, please, can I join? So that's why.
That's fantastic. I love that. I love that story. So going back to your work and your missions, sort of writ large, the sort of radical rethinking from corporate culture, both from the top down and the bottom up. Thinking, what does what does success look like? What does, what is the sort of, like both, I guess, on an individual company basis, and then kind of like a whole paradigm shift? What does that look like for us? What is the world going to be?
Yeah, that's a very good question. As in, what would success look like is pretty much what I sort of described before in regards to a system that is regenerative, that is inclusive, that is just individual from an individual, from a micro system level, but also from a macro and global system level. And we are so far away from that it's a difficult sort of thing to imagine, as in what would that actually even look like. But success, if I think about success and where I see success and what I try and achieve, is that enablement of agency and empowerment of individuals, no matter where they are, right? Like, what I absolutely love seeing is that when I have had conversations with executives who were on the on the no side first, that they were sort of like, no, we're actually doing okay. We're in an industry that makes enough money, that sort of thing. And then, bumping into them a bit later, where they have suddenly become this massive advocate for bringing more females into the organization, having embraced learning Te Reo here in New Zealand, the Maori language, and incorporating that in what they do, when they suddenly have a budget for sustainability team and climate change. They're changing, they're investigating how to change business models. So that real mindset shift, whether that's on an executive level or on, people that are starting in their careers. I mean, one of my favorite stories is with Match for Action, with the not-for-profit, where we were working with an organization in Brazil, in Rio, where they were as their social impact arm of a software development company, were working with the young kids from the favelas in Rio to try and give them skills, like digital skills, so that they could actually learn and get a good job. In the favelas, I don't know if you know anything about it. If you've been born in there, you're worth absolutely nothing. You're the lowest of the lowest. You're not going to get education because people just don't think you exist, sort of thing. So to be able to work with them as a not-for-profit, where we actually allow them to develop our app and use the connections to us and the connections that we have to Stanford, and put that on their CVs, and talking, and then seeing the young kids that actually were part of that now having good jobs in their companies, in companies in Brazil, where they get paid so much that they have been able to lift their whole families out of the poverty that they were in, and are proud and are thriving and are still part of the culture that they're in, because that is super important and there's nothing wrong with it. But to actually have managed to be able to be a part of that is absolutely incredible. And that's to me is also what success looks like.
Yeah, as extremely inspiring. Yeah. So, but I'm gonna ask you kind of a silly question. I guess, and you can also choose to answer if you like. But what is the thing in this space, in this sphere, and this sort of what is the thing that pisses you off most? And it could be just essentially like a problem you constantly encounter. It could be a pre-existing notion that basically everyone you seem to talk to or have to work with share. What is that thing that you just wish everyone could kind of, I don't know, collectively stop thinking or stop believing?
There's actually more than one thing that pisses me off.
Love it. It's fine.
One of my core things is respect. Like, if there is somebody that hasn't got respect for another, or for the natural life, for another human being, for the company, for whatever it is, like just the base level of just be respectful. And that if people don't have that, that really pisses me off. So, and I will step up too. I will step up for whatever they don't respect, and I will be the voice for that to sort of go away. So, and the other thing is that notion of having to be competitive. That that the only thing we need to do to I don't know, to thrive or live or build businesses is that, what is different and how can we be better than you are? And, just having that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a sports game and wanting to win and that sort of thing. But in our lives, we have to start understanding that collaboration is what it is about. So radical collaboration is another one of my core philosophies in whatever I do, because to me, only because of collaboration, only through collaboration, we're going to achieve the things that we actually need to achieve. Like that collective wisdom is so much stronger than 1+1 or even one on its own sort of thing. You're never going to achieve it. So people that are continuously just trying to beat another by hiding things or by stealing things, and that incredibly angers me too. But to be able to achieve collaboration, you can't be angry with the others. You have to try and bring them along to sort of actually make them see that collaboration is better than what they're doing on their own. But I do get pissed off with that. And then obviously just spreading misinformation is the other thing, which is often to do with that competitiveness as well, right? So that's the other real, I find it so incredibly sad that they're trying to influence vulnerable people, by spreading this stuff that is just known not being true.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up both respect and the competition element, because it is something that also makes me extremely angry. And I think the less of it that we had, the better off we would be, right? Yeah, that is the incessant competition within a company, ostensibly, of everyone working more or less in like for a collective goal, which is to make that company make more money than it did last month. And yet still people are treating each other as though it's some sort of Cold War espionage mind game or something. It absolutely baffles me. And so completely empathize on that one. We talked about sort of what success looks like, but something you had said earlier about childhood learning, and it sort of got me thinking in the background just about how architected, even at least in the United States, and I've never attended at least primary school or in another country, but at least in the United States, how architecture and education is to bringing these kinds of problematic mentalities to life, right? It's like to production, right? It's a sort of like sit down, shut up, optimize the game, do the least work for the most amount of success. And also, it's possible that none of this even matters because of who your family is, right? But back to the whole the original sort of classroom, sit down, shut up kind of thing. And we have sort of solutions to that kind of, there are Montessori, there's new educational training, but it seems that all of that still leads to the same road, which is make more money than you did last month, or you might starve to death, right? So how, I assume you probably think about this sometimes, like what are some of the ways that you think that, maybe not just at the primary school level, but throughout an education, that we can bring more of these ideas and strategies and styles of learning into it, so that by the time you get to college, you're not thinking about, okay, well, it's going to be doctor, lawyer, or iBanker, because otherwise we're going to drown in debt.
Absolutely. I am actually really lucky to have grown up in the Netherlands and the educational system there at the time, because when I came to here in New Zealand, which is the system based on the English system, and seeing my stepdaughter going through that, the system here is more like in the US, really, really based on competition, and it is just not suited to the most people, I would say. But anyway, so how do we address that? Is indeed we need to reset up the schooling system. The current schooling system is like since 200 years old. Like obviously that is not going to work in the current environment, but we continue to push the kids through that. It just doesn't make any sense. And again, bringing in, when I set up the course here in Aotearoa, which was postgraduate, so all people that have already gone through potentially through schooling, or at least are working, average age was 40 of the people that were on that course. But some of the things that we addressed within that was indeed, firstly, accessibility to education, because not everybody is engaged by reading books. Not everybody is engaged by having to go through technology. Not everybody is engaged and can learn in the same way. So you have to be open to addressing different styles of learning. The same with assessments. Like, don't just doing a multiple choice exam is what's that doing to people's learning. It doesn't, it's no good for solving the problems that we actually currently facing. It should be about collaboration, and it should be about servant leadership. Like, how do you actually help the wider system to get better, and what role can you play within that? And how do you apply what you can do, what your natural gifts are, and what you can learn to actually help the collective to advance in a way that is good for all of us. So those types of things, like learning how to collaborate, for instance, is not part of most of our educational systems, and it is so incredibly important that we teach that we and that we value that as much as we value that people can do maths or science in such a way. Just those other types of skills that are going to actually help us get through the mess that we're currently in. But it does mean a complete overhaul of most of the curricula, which is obviously an incredibly difficult task. But like you said, there are streams of schools happening, like Montessori. There's also, like, here in New Zealand, we have a school called Green School, which was originated in Bali, and they have some satellites where kids learn how to be part of nature and what that actually could mean to them in their careers. And that's the type of thing. But that is obviously seen currently still as hippie living, which is why I really like it, probably. It's the type of stuff that we should be teaching.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things missing from nearly all traditional education is that the idea that we're all in this together in a way that is non-exploitative, right? It's sort of a reminder to say, if we all win, we all win, rather than it's this free for all to figure out who gets the best job or who gets to go to the best school. This whole idea of competition and this farcical meritocracy. But yeah, I too, as someone who has two young children, see them struggling with a lot of these same elements, not only myself when I was a child. Yes. So we actually do have another question from Hank, and his question is: we've talked about the idea of building environmental sustainability and resilience into a company's financial model. How would you, Saskia, approach this problem? What might a solution look like to help companies build natural alignment into their corporate infrastructure? Sounds like something that you are more than qualified to answer.
Yeah. So what that looks like is to look at the business model that you currently have and what the impacts of that are. Really, is in positive or negative, direct and indirect impacts on the natural environment and of the natural environment as well. So when you talk about resilience, it probably is more about the natural resources that you actually require to run your company. And environmental sustainability, the way I then interpret it, is that sort of that impact that you have as part of what you do. So every day that you operate, what impacts are you bringing down to the natural environment? If we just talk about natural environment here, so, that what we should be thinking about is how can we create business models that are environmentally regenerative. So every day that we operate, we actually make the natural environment better. So what does that look like? And really dive deep into what that actually means. What are the things we need to stop doing? What are the things we need to start doing? What are the things we really need to redesign, because currently we are not. And there is hardly any companies in the world that actually are doing this. I know one of them is Interface, Floor. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're like a capital company, and they had an incredibly inspiring CEO back in the 1990s already. Unfortunately, if you look him up, Interface Floor, then there's some really inspiring stuff that he did. Unfortunately, like, this was back in the 1990s, and why haven't more people picked this up? But basically, currently they're still operating. They're one of the only ones that operate factories that are indeed regenerative. Like, the way that they operate their factory is the way that a forest works. And I know, like, in Norway, they're setting up factories like that as part of the new sort of ecosystem of wanting to operate and being able to operate, where you actually do indeed not just focus on reducing waste, but they are waste free to start with. There's no point in saying reducing waste. You actually need to be fully waste free. And then indeed having, I don't know, filter the water so you can give it back, adding good stuff back to the soil, having the factories, covered in plants and community gardens and all that sort of thing as part of it. So that's the type of thing, which obviously means it's a different thing to different companies. If you're a consulting company, the things to think about right now is the digital side of it. Like, what are we building that requires so much power for us to be able to actually operate, and how can we do this differently? Are there certain data centers that we can work with or help build, for instance, that are indeed carbon negative, as in they give back more than they take? Obviously, being technology consultants, the material impacts will likely be the energy used for the technology solutions that you provide, and obviously travel. What does that mean? We all love face-to-face meetings, but currently we all know that flying is not sustainable. It doesn't mean that we should stop flying right now, but we do need to take that into account as part of our business model, and be willing to challenge. Like, that's the other thing that people go, oh no, but the customer wants me to be here and it's a day's flight or so. Challenge the customer and say, well, actually, my belief is that we should be regenerative. I have not got a carbon budget anymore this year. So how can, I want to help you. What does that look like? And it just means taking a very different approach. And I know it can be done. I know that, people say, oh, but you can't get the engagement if you're not face to face. I know it can be done because I've done, I do this all the time. Like, I run the Match for Action not-for-profit is completely virtual, and we've done this since 2017. And, I've done virtual Stanford courses where the engagement that I've had with the people in those courses, people know a lot more about me than some of my friends do, sort of thing. Like, it's like, it just means that you have to set your mind to it to make a different way of approaching, with that goal of that environmental sustainability and resilience as the end goal, sort of thing, as this is what we're going to do. And we're not going to just compromise because we think that that's how it's supposed to be. So it's not easy, right? That's the other thing. Like, this is not, there's also not one solution. This is, not a black and white area. It's gray, it's developing. We don't know all the answers. But it can be done. We need to do it, because otherwise we may as well give up on the world.
Yeah, well, I think we could at least start with just a worldwide ban on private individuals owning aircraft.
Yeah, nice.
That might be a start.
I like it.
Once again, thank you so much for joining us today, Saskia. Did you, as we come up on time here, wrap up, did you have anything that you would like to plug? Are you writing books? Or are you currently, are you active on the socials? Is there anything that you would like, or do you have something that you've been reading or watching that you really want to recommend to other people? This is you have the floor.
Thank you so much. What I want to plug is for everybody to just be bold, curious, and kind in everything that you do. Think about every decision that you make and how this can be a better decision if you give it a little bit of time and think about the holistic impacts that decision may have. And this could be language that you use, or a product that you buy, or a product that you build, consulting advice that you give, all of that. Be bold, curious, and kind with that larger earth in mind. I try and be a thought leader. So I do share a lot of information on LinkedIn. So if you want to follow me there and comment on it and ask me questions, please do. I love being challenged. One of the things I said to Trek in the beginning, I hope there are people here that will ask incredibly difficult questions, because that is the way we will move forward. Because like I said, we don't know all the answers yet, and only by challenging each other and be respectful and building on that collective wisdom are we going to be able to find the answers that we need to be able to create that regenerative, inclusive, and just future. Please do reach out. I'm always also happy to be, if you need a critical friend as part of a team, consulting team or whatever, somebody that is willing to challenge the CEOs and boards and is not afraid to do that. I'm always happy to be part of that too. That's what this is the thing that we need to do to create that beautiful future that I still believe that we can make for your kids, Trek, and for all the other generations that follow them as well.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much. You heard it here. Be bold, curious, and kind with the earth in mind. And thank you so much, Saskia and the rest of Quorum One. We will see you next time.